Ever think about like who actually controls how we see the internet? Like, we use browsers all the time, but what if the company that made your browser had way too much power? Well, that's kind of what we're looking at today. This whole Hacker News discussion about the DOJ and them wanting Google to sell off Chrome.
Right.
It gets into some pretty wild scenarios.
Yeah.
Might make you rethink your whole internet,
Yeah, it's fascinating because browsers are like more than just a piece of software,
Yeah.
It's the gateway to everything we do online. I mean, searching for information, connecting with friends, like our finances even. And Chrome especially, it's become like incredibly powerful.
It really has.
Huge majority of people use it worldwide.
Yeah.
And so the DOJ is kind of concerned about like Google's potential to use that, leverage that dominance, especially since they're a major player in the advertising world.
Absolutely, yeah.
So the big question is, can you even like just split a browser off from a company like Google? What would even happen?
Yeah, and the discussion really digs into the power, like the sheer power that Google has because of Chrome.
Yeah.
And some users bring up like the insane amount of data that Google gets through everything you do on the browser.
Right.
One person even suggested checking out Google Takeout. Where you can download all your data.
Oh, yeah.
And you'll be shocked by how much of your browsing history is actually in there.
Oh, yeah.
Kind of creepy.
It's a little unsettling when you think about it.
Yeah.
And it's not just about feeling like creeped out. It ties right into Google's dominance in search and advertising.
Oh, for sure.
All that browsing data feeds their algorithms, lets them personalize search results, target ads with like laser precision, ultimately make a ton of money.
Yeah.
Classic network effects, right?
Yeah.
More people use Chrome, the more data Google gets, which makes their products better, which attracts more users, and on and on.
It's cycle.
Like a self-reinforcing cycle.
Yeah.
Tough to break.
So some users are like, I don't know if separating Chrome would even do anything.
Right.
Like, who would buy it?
Yeah.
They just do the same stuff Google's doing.
Right.
There were some interesting ideas in there, though.
Okay.
Some people thought Microsoft might be interested.
Interesting.
Or maybe Amazon.
Okay.
Or IBM.
Uh-huh.
One person even said ByteDance. That's the TikTok company.
Oh, wow.
Could you imagine, like, a Chinese company owning Chrome?
That definitely raises some eyebrows.
I think so, yeah.
Especially like with all the geopolitics and data privacy stuff going on.
Right.
We've seen how sensitive the TikTok thing's been.
Exactly.
So a Chinese company having a major browser likely face some political hurdles.
Yeah, for sure. That's a whole other thing.
Oh, yeah.
But even beyond who buys it, some users said just changing the owner might not solve the problem.
Right.
We worry that a new owner would inherit Google's practices. Just keep using Chrome for data and to like fuel their own businesses.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's the point?
What's the point if nothing changes?
Yeah,
right.
Exactly.
Yeah, untangling Chrome from Google's services would be ridiculously complex, even if there was a buyer.
Yeah.
Think about it. So many people use Chrome while signed into their Google account.
Right.
One user highlighted the challenge of separating Chrome identities from Google identities.
Yeah.
Not a clean break. It's more like separating two trees that have grown together for years.
Yes, exactly.
All intertwined.
Yeah, okay, so let's say we magically separate Chrome from Google.
Okay.
Another big question. How would an independent Chrome even make money?
Right.
Could a browser even exist without being part of a bigger thing, like Google?
That's where it gets really interesting.
Yeah.
Some users in the discussion made a really cool analogy.
Okay.
They argue that browsers are kind of like those essential building blocks of software, like C libraries or compilers.
Okay.
Absolutely critical.
Right.
But not necessarily profitable on their own. They have to be part of something bigger to work, really.
So what's the alternative?
Yeah.
Could a standalone Chrome make money without being like Google?
The discussion goes into a few possibilities, each with its own challenges. Some users propose a business model, maybe selling Chrome to businesses, focus on security and privacy, similar to companies like Island.io are doing. Others point to the open source world for inspiration, suggesting a donation or a consortium model like Linux, how those are sustainable.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those seem pretty different from what we're used to with browsers.
Yeah, for sure.
What about a government-owned browser? That was mentioned too, wasn't it?
It was, and it got people talking, that's for sure.
Yeah.
Some see it as like a solution to corporate control.
Yeah.
But obviously it brings up all sorts of worries about censorship, government overreach.
Like, imagine your browser is controlled by the government.
Yeah, sounds like a dystopian novel, right?
A little bit.
Yeah, and it's not even clear if a government-run browser could compete, you know?
Right.
Like with the innovation and speed of the private sector.
Yeah, that's a whole other level of complexity.
Sure.
So it seems like no matter who owns Chrome, there are big trade-offs.
Yeah.
Let's shift gears for a sec and think bigger picture. What does all this mean for the future of the web itself?
That's where it gets really interesting, yeah. It's kind of wild to think that even if Google had to sell Chrome, they could still make money from it.
Really?
Yeah, one user said Firefox has made billions over the years by pretty much auctioning off that default search engine slot.
Oh, right.
First it was Yahoo, then Google.
So you're saying Google could get paid by whoever buys Chrome just to stay the default search?
Yeah, it's not quite that easy. Remember those Google payments to be the default in Firefox?
Right.
Regulators actually said that was anti-competitive.
Oh, yeah?
So could that even happen with Chrome? Even with a new owner? It's a tricky balance.
For sure.
Finding ways to pay for browser development, but not breaking those antitrust laws.
Yeah, okay, so that's another thing to think about. But back to the web. Do you think breaking up Chrome could actually help other search engines compete? I mean, Google's on top for both search and the browser.
Right.
Could separating them level the playing field at all?
That's a popular question. But some users weren't so sure. They said even if Chrome sold, Google search is so ingrained.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be really hard to change people's habits.
Right.
One person even pointed out that Bing is already the default on Edge.
Right.
And that comes with Windows.
Yeah.
Arguably the biggest operating system, and Bing is still way behind Google.
Yeah, that's true. But wouldn't Chrome being the default on Android give Google a bigger advantage? I mean, Android's everywhere.
Absolutely. And this is where ecosystems come in.
Okay.
It's not just about what's default, it's how it's all connected.
Right.
Lots of users that Chrome's dominance isn't just features or speed. It's because it fits right in with all of Google's stuff. Gmail, YouTube, Maps, you name it.
It all works together.
Exactly. And that creates this feedback loop. People use Chrome because it works with Google. And that gives Google more data to make things even better.
Right.
And it keeps growing.
It's a self-perpetuating cycle.
Exactly.
Yeah, one user said it's straight up Google won search fair and square.
Okay.
But they're staying on top because of Chrome.
Interesting.
They even said Google search isn't as good as it used to be.
Okay.
But people stick with it because of Chrome.
Yeah, that idea of Google's dominance stifling innovation.
Right.
It comes up a lot.
It does.
And it ties into those concerns about browser development not really changing.
Right.
Some users worry that even if Chrome gets split up, we won't see anything truly new.
Right.
Just a different company controlling the same old web.
Same old, same old.
Yeah.
But amongst all the doom and gloom, there were some users offering different visions for browsers.
Yeah.
One that stood out was this idea of a non-profit owning Chrome,
Oh, interesting.
maybe funded by a group of companies or donations.
That's fascinating. It shows how much people want a browser that's not tied to one company's goals.
Right.
But it brings up some practical questions.
Like what?
Could a foundation like that even raise enough money to compete with the big guys?
Yeah, that's a good point.
And how would they stay truly independent?
Those are tough ones.
Yeah, and even if you figured out the money and how to run it, there's the whole technical side.
Right, separating it from Google.
Exactly. One person pointed out how many people use Chrome with their Google accounts. How do you separate those identities?
It'd be a mess.
It wouldn't be easy.
Not at all.
It reminds us that this isn't just about software. It's about all that user data, passwords, everything that's synced.
It's like a whole web of interconnected stuff.
And then there's the people.
The human side of it.
Yeah, what happens to all the engineers and developers?
Right.
Do they have to switch companies? What about their work? Who owns that? It gets complicated fast.
Really complicated. So let's say Google has to sell Chrome. Could they just make a new one that's almost the same?
That would probably end up in court.
You think so?
It wouldn't be the first time a company tried to get around the rules by making a new product that's basically a copy.
Oh, right, like a clone.
We've seen it before.
Yeah. One user actually used a pretty strong word, the Antichrist, when talking about Microsoft.
Wow.
They're worried that Edge, Microsoft's browser, could become the new Internet Explorer
Right.
if Chrome is gone.
Interesting.
Like, we'll just end up with a different company in charge, stifling everything.
Yeah, those concerns make sense, especially with the history of browsers, The Microsoft antitrust case from years ago is still relevant.
Yeah.
People are afraid of history repeating itself, one company controlling the web and using that to shut down competition.
It seems like every solution has its own problems. Makes you wonder if a browser can even exist without a big company behind it.
It's a fundamental question. Some users point it to Opera, a browser that's doing pretty well without a tech giant owning it.
Yeah, I've heard of Opera.
But others say it's an exception. It'd be hard for any independent browser to get as big as Chrome.
Right. One person even suggested a state-owned browser.
What?
The government controlling your browser. That's a little unsettling.
Yeah, it does bring up images of censorship and surveillance. But even beyond that, there's the practical side.
Right. Could they even keep up?
Exactly. Could a government-run browser keep up with the speed of the tech world? Would they even be able to get talented people to work on it and make a browser that's actually good?
It's a tough sell. This whole thing's got me thinking, are monopolies always bad? Like, is it inevitable that one company will always end up on top?
That's a big one. Economists and politicians have been arguing about that forever.
I bet.
Monopolies can definitely hurt competition and consumers.
Yeah?
But some people say that some dominance can actually lead to innovation and efficiency.
Okay, I can kind of see that.
Yeah, one user had an interesting point.
What's that?
They said, in a world without monopolies, we might not see much innovation at all.
Really?
They used the example of Bell Labs, which was funded by AT&T.
Oh, right. The phone company.
Back then, it was a huge monopoly.
Right.
And Bell Labs came up with amazing things: the transistor, the laser, the Unix operating system.
Wow.
Their point was, sometimes you need a lot of resources and a long-term plan to make those big breakthroughs.
I guess that makes sense.
It shows that innovation can come from unexpected places. Even monopolies can help push technology forward.
Well, there's a balance.
Exactly. You need strong rules to stop monopolies from abusing their power and preventing competition.
Right. So back to the DOJ and Google.
Yeah.
Some people see this as a necessary step to control Google,
Yeah.
create a fairer system for other companies.
Right.
Others see it as the government interfering too much.
Right.
Maybe hurting consumers by slowing down progress or making things more expensive.
One user compared it to the breakup of AT&T.
I vaguely remember that.
It was a huge deal in the tech world.
Yeah.
They argued that breaking up AT&T actually led to the internet we have today.
Oh, wow.
Sometimes you need to shake things up to get a more dynamic and innovative landscape.
It's interesting to see how this is hitting people who remember those old internet battles. But things are different now. The internet's a much bigger part of our lives.
Absolutely. And as this case goes through the courts, there's another thing to remember.
What's that?
The antitrust lawsuit against Google's ad business. Closing arguments are soon, so all this Chrome stuff is happening while Google's under a microscope.
It feels like a turning point. What if we could start over? If we could redesign the internet, what would it be like?
That sparks the imagination, doesn't it?
It does.
Some users dream of a truly decentralized web.
Okay.
No single company or government in control.
Right.
They imagine a peer-to-peer network where users have more power over their data and their experience.
That sounds ideal, but also super complicated. How would that even work?
It'd be a huge project for sure, but there are already things happening that show what a decentralized web could be like.
Like what?
Blockchain, for example.
Oh, right.
People are looking at that for more secure and transparent systems.
Interesting.
Managing data, online transactions, that kind of thing. And there's more interest in alternative social media, platforms that prioritize privacy and users owning their data.
So maybe things are starting to change. But one user made a point that really stuck with me.
Okay.
They said, even with all the fancy new tech, browsing the internet hasn't really changed in 15 years.
It's true.
We're still using websites, search engines, social media. They're hoping this whole Chrome mess could actually lead to something truly new.
That's a feeling many people share. We're so used to the internet as it is, it's hard to imagine anything different.
Yeah.
But throughout history, the biggest tech changes often come from unexpected places. Sometimes you need something to shake things up, disrupt the status quo to get real innovation.
So maybe Chrome is that disruption. Maybe this is what gets us thinking outside the box. Exploring completely new ways of connecting, sharing, being online.
It's possible, but innovation doesn't always mean starting from scratch. Sometimes it's about taking what we have and making it better. Easier to use, more powerful for individuals.
Right. And maybe that's where we, the users, have a role.
Okay.
One user said, instead of waiting for a better browser to appear, we should be helping build them.
I like that.
If enough people switch to browsers that focus on privacy, security, control, that's a message to the whole industry.
It's a call to action, a reminder that we have choices. We don't have to just accept things as they are.
Yeah.
We can make choices with our clicks, our downloads, our money.
Right.
By supporting the right companies and projects, we can shape the web.
You know, one user said something that's particularly relevant for you, the listener, especially if you've ever been frustrated with slow upload speeds.
Okay.
They mentioned that Google's been caught throttling upload speeds to Google Drive when using Firefox compared to Chrome.
It's a reminder that Google wants to keep users within their system.
Of course.
It makes you wonder if they're using Chrome to make competitors worse or steer users towards their own stuff.
Wow, so your browser could actually slow down your internet. Sneaky. But at least Google gives us a lot of free stuff, right?
Right.
Android, Chromium, Kubernetes. One user even listed a bunch of Google products they think are good for humanity as a whole.
It's true, Google has made some really useful and innovative products.
Yeah.
But another user pushed back on that gifts idea. They said we pay for those free services with our data, our attention, our privacy.
It's that old saying, if you're not paying for the product, you are the product.
Exactly.
And let's be real, most of us don't read those privacy policies, so who knows what's happening with our data?
It's a valid concern. It points to the need for better data privacy rules, rules that give users more control over their information. We're trusting these companies with so much of our lives.
Right.
We need to make sure they're handling it responsibly.
But some users argue that Google's actually better than other tech giants when it comes to privacy. They mention Apple and how they control the App Store and iOS.
True. Apple has its own problems with competition and user control. And this discussion shows that no tech company is perfect.
Right.
They all have their own agendas and biases and are trying to make money.
One user even said the government should focus on breaking up Apple instead of Google.
Really?
They think Apple controlling the iPhone is worse than Google controlling the web.
Interesting. It reminds us that this isn't just about Google, it's about big tech in general and how they affect society.
Yeah.
And it raises the question, is breaking up these companies the right answer? Or do we need new ways to regulate them, make things fair?
It's a tough one. No easy answers. As we wrap up this part of the deep dive, it's clear that a lot's at stake here. The future of the web, our digital lives. It's all connected. It feels like we're at this crossroads with the internet. Chrome, Google's ads, monopolies. Makes you wonder, like, what's a better future even look like? The Hacker News discussion goes pretty deep into some wild ideas.
Yeah, it is pretty inspiring to see people really trying to figure this out. Some users are talking about a completely decentralized web, one that's not controlled by any one company or government.
Right.
They're thinking like a peer-to-peer network. Users have way more control over their data and their whole experience.
Seems kind of utopian.
Yeah.
But also crazy complicated. Like, how would you even start to build that?
It'd be a massive project, no doubt. But there are things popping up that give a hint of what that could be like.
Okay, like what?
Blockchain, for example.
Yeah.
People are looking at that for building more secure and transparent system.
Right.
For managing data, online transactions. And there's a growing interest in alternative social media platforms, ones that focus on privacy and data ownership.
So maybe we're seeing the beginnings of something new. But one user said something interesting.
How's that?
They said, even with all the tech advances, browsing the internet hasn't really changed in like 15 years.
Yeah.
We're still stuck with websites, search engines, social media. They're hoping that this whole Chrome thing could actually lead to something totally different, something we haven't even thought of yet.
I think a lot of people feel that way. We're so used to how the internet works, it's hard to picture anything radically different. But if you look back, big tech changes often come out of nowhere, Sometimes it takes something to shake things up, disrupt everything, to get real innovation going.
And maybe Chrome is that thing. Maybe this is what we need to start thinking differently, like exploring new ways to connect, share information, just be online in general.
It could be. But innovation doesn't always mean starting from zero. Sometimes it's about taking what we have and making it better. More accessible, more user-friendly, giving people more power.
And that's maybe where we, the users, come in.
Right.
One user said, instead of waiting for a better browser to just appear, we should be helping build them.
I like that.
If enough people start using browsers that focus on privacy, security, control, that sends a message to the whole industry.
It's a call to action. We have a choice. We don't have to just go with the flow.
Right.
We can choose with our clicks, our downloads, our money.
Right. Support the stuff we believe in.
Exactly. And by doing that, we can help shape the web.
So as we wrap up this deep dive, we want to leave you with a few things to remember. First, your web browser isn't just a tool. It's a gateway to a whole world, you know? And there are powerful players in that world who want your attention, your data, your money. So be aware of what you're getting into and make smart choices about what you use.
And don't be afraid to try different things. There are lots of browsers out there. They all offer different features, privacy, ways to control your experience. Find one that fits you.
And lastly, remember you have a voice. Don't underestimate your power as a user. Speak up about what matters to you. Support the projects that are trying to build a better web. And keep pushing for an internet that's more open, fair, and respects our privacy. The future of the web is in our hands.